Hello everybody and welcome back to Esther's Eden. I'm Esther and I am super excited because I finally have sunny weather outside to be able to take you into my garden for a garden tour. But before we get into that, I thought, I just have to share something with you guys. I can't help myself. That's just all there is to it. I am a crazy plant lady through and through, and I just can't help it. So I went to the post office box today and I got a package in the mail that I think you guys are going to want to see. So grab a cup of tea. That's what I'm drinking today. My wonderful regular English tea with milk and sugar. You know me, guys. So while I enjoy my tea, I'm going to open this package. So we're going to do this package first, and then I'm going to take you and show you the greenhouse and what's kind of going on in here. And then after that, we'll head outside into the garden. All right, the big reveal. What is in this bag? Can you guess? Leave it in the comments. Let's see. You know me. You know how to do with plants. Seeds. So I actually always do a big seed order, and I didn't do one for this year. I did a tiny one because I thought I was going to take the year off, and then of course I decided I couldn't take the year off because it's me and I need to garden. So there's that. Okay, so what is in this bag? What all did I get? I'm going to show you guys. I'm super excited about it. So honestly, one of the main reasons that I decided to go ahead and bulk up was because I realized as I already planted, I've only planted the kitchen garden, which I'm going to take you and show you here very soon. But I realized that I was going to probably run out of a few seeds. And honestly, right now, which I'm not really like a prepper per se, but you can't help other people if you get caught off guard and you don't have certain things prepared. So I guess maybe that does make me a prepper of sorts, but it's not in your normal like let it take over your life kind of way. I just like to kind of have things on hand. I like to share seeds. I like to trade seeds. If people are talking to me and we're having a conversation and I happen to have them on hand, I'm probably going to offer some. So anyway, I just didn't do that this year. And with everything the way that it's going, I thought, you know what, it'd be kind of silly to not order seeds and then not be able to get them. So even though I most likely will just be saving these for next year, at least now I have them. And I think, yeah, I just think that's a good idea. So they were out. This is all from one company. This is all from Baker Creek. I'm not an affiliate or anything, but they seriously, I've been growing their seeds for over 10 years and they are my favorite. They just do really well in our climate. They have a lot of unusual varieties, which you guys know I love. And so I'm going to just show you really quickly what all I got. I just put them into little sections here for you guys, and that way it will make it easier. So my first set here is basically just a whole bunch of different greens. I mentioned in the video where I interviewed Don Tremmel that I am going to have a winter garden this year. So we're going for year-round gardening in a cold climate with no heat. I do think I will probably use this greenhouse, but mostly it's going to be out there, and I'm going to take you along for the entire journey of putting that particular space together. Oh, that's kind of nice. We got a little bit of cloud cover here. But anyway, these are just a lot of really hardy, like this tatsoi. I'm super excited to try it. It should be really cold hardy, and especially like corn salad. So I'm hoping that these are some of those varieties. I may have to place another order with a different company and just kind of see. I just need to go through. I need to go through the list of the most cold hardy varieties and see which ones are going to be the best. But I'll have to get those orders in. If you want to get, like in our area, we're a zone 4. I say a zone 4. It really has to do with your frost dates more than anything else. I'm classified as a zone 5, but if you plant for that right where I'm at, that just doesn't work. So anyway, we got lots of greens. These are my all-time favorite kind of pea to grow. So they are very tall telephone. They can get like 10, 12 feet tall. And then they produce these great big pea pods, and they just are they're so good. They're so sweet. And we like to make canned peas and frozen peas and eat fresh peas out of the garden with these ones. So they happen to have them, and I went ahead and just ordered extras. I do try to save pea seeds, but last year the year before, I saved like buckets of pea seeds, and there was like a little bug in them and ate all of my seeds. If you know what that is, leave me a comment down below. I don't know what kind of a bug it was that did that, and if you know how to prevent it, that'd be awesome, because I didn't even know until the seeds were dried and they'd been sitting in there, and I went to pull them out and use them in soup, and they were full of bugs. It was very depressing. Another kind is this Lincoln pea. I think I've grown these. It's been a while ago. I'm pretty sure I couldn't get these ones, so I tried a different one. These are just like a really short pea. They're a quick producer. They did not have the Oregon Sugar Pod #2 that I've been growing for ever and ever. It's a snow pea that's so amazing. So I have just a few seeds left. I'm going to plant all of them. Actually, I already did. They're in the kitchen garden, and then I'm going to be able to use those for saving seed from. Few different types of onion seeds. We're not going to plant these this year. Most likely I'll probably start them next year. Onions are kind of a 2 or 3 year process if you're growing them from seed in our area, and honestly I've never been successful, so I would like to make that one of my goals for 2023. And now I have the seed on hand. I don't even have to wait for myself to get together and order the seeds. I would really like to start growing grains in between our food forest trees. I'll show you what I'm talking about when we get out there, but the only one that they had available was this black hulless barley. I know that they used to sell different kinds of wheat and different kinds of oats and things, and they just didn't have any available. So I don't know if that's just my timing or if they're not selling those anymore. I ordered this really fun pink celery. I'll try this next year. Most of my celery seeds and seedlings did not make it. I'll show you those here as we go through a tour. You know, you just can't keep everything alive when you're starting it in January. Just with limited space, and as much as we have to move these guys, this is going to end up being a 2023 goal video as well as a garden tour, but I would like to get a better setup for my seedlings going into the next year. So these are a couple of free seed packets whenever you order. I think you have to order 3 or 5, or anyway, it's a certain number. If you order that many packets of seeds, then they send you free seeds. I always like to try some unusual things, so I have tried these from seeds and from starts many times. The bulls really love them, so I'm trying them again, and I ordered my own seeds this time so I can keep them separate, and we'll see if we can get these guys going. I have these white soul strawberries, and then these are a red wonder. I did order and planted them, and they are growing, but the kids really wanted to have their own little patch, and I ran out of seeds, so I thought, well, there we go. Now we have extras. I ordered a couple of different herbs. I don't really need very many herb seeds anymore because mostly my garden is full of starts, but there are a few that I don't have. There's like millions of herbs around the world. I don't have that many. I do have a lot, but anyway, there's just not a lot of the seeds that they offer that I don't have. I do really love a different company called Strictly Medicinals. Ouch, I have a sliver. Strictly Medicinal seeds, and I can link both Baker Creek and Strictly Medicinal down in the description box. They just don't have, so Strictly Medicinal has a lot of very unusual ones like the Ella Campaign, and I mean, they just literally have so many to choose from. They also have grains as well, and I'll probably place an order with them. It's a little bit late, unfortunately, now that like we've had just such a cold, wet spring, so we'll see. I doubt I'll get any big grain crops going this year, but again, there we go. See, there's another goal. We've already got 3 goals for 2023. Okay, so we've got some Alecampaign, just some Florence Fennel, which is a vegetable and an herb. This has been really fun. I have always wanted this and always talked myself out of it. So finally, since I was only ordering 4 herbs, I was like, just order it. And so now I have curly parsley. I already have the big flat leaf Italian parsley as well as the Hamburg rooted parsley. And both of those have done great for me. This is Dwarf Moringa. It is an extremely medicinal plant. And honestly, I'm hoping to just be able to grow it as a house plant. So we'll see. I'm gonna give it a shot. Lastly, I cannot help myself. Maggie, whenever she looks at the catalog with me, we go a little crazy. So this is not even that bad. This is not that big of an order for me. But I did, like I said, place a small one back in December. And then I ordered, like I have those 2 boxes of seeds. You guys have seen them many, many times. So I have lots of flower seeds. But these were some extra fun ones. Poppies, I am currently transitioning all the poppies in my garden to an edible poppy. I want to be able to utilize the seeds for baking, because if you ever buy box muffins, I mean, we don't really do that very frequently, but the last time I opened the bag of poppy seeds and I know that they were rancid, and I just thought, how silly. Like, these guys produce thousands and gajillions of seeds. Why not just grow your own? So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna start these ones, and I have a black one as well. So I'm hoping these take off. These will probably be a next year's thing, and then we're gonna go check out the ones that I planted this year and see if they did anything. I have this beautiful blue sage. I do like to do a lot of cut flower gardening. We give away a lot of bouquets. Occasionally we sell bouquets, and we love to fill the house. Maggie especially, she'll pick every flower in the garden if I let her. These Black King pansies are incredible. I'm going to show you some I have growing right now, but I was totally out of seed, so I went ahead and stacked those up. And then this bee balm, I keep losing track of my seeds, and this somehow slips through the cracks of watering or, you know, whatever, and I just have yet to be able to get a patch of this going. I have red, but I would really like multicolored, and so we're going to try it. And then this grandiflora, we're going to see. I have never grown this before, but it looks really beautiful and catches my eye every year in the catalog, so I went ahead and went for it. So that's the seeds that I've ordered. Like I said, a lot of these are going to be for next year. Some of them are just for backup, and then some of them we will plant together at some point, probably. We'll just have to see how time allows it. I can't believe that it's already like the 2nd week of May. Maggie's gonna be 5. Maggie's gonna be 5 on Friday. I can't believe it. Okay, I'm gonna finish my tea. Now I'm gonna take you guys around the greenhouse, and let's get this garden tour going. All right, so here's the official welcome to my greenhouse. This is it. It is currently not heated, although I'm kind of getting tired of moving all of my trays back and forth to the house, so I may plug in a heater tonight. We'll see. Okay, so let's see. I think I'll just take you through each bed and each tray that I have in here and show you what I got going on. So these guys here are, I've got rosemary and a bunch of different squash and some nasturtiums going on. There's a couple of tomatoes thrown in there. They got super leggy in the house, which I don't love that. I actually never ever start squash seeds in the house, but I am trying very hard to get a harvest this year. That's just some herbs or flowers I've got going on. And there's my measly, puny little celery seeds, or celery starts there. So sad. So we'll just skip celery for this year, I suppose. Tomatoes, everything's a little wonky because I just watered a little bit ago, so they'll all stand up. They'll be just fine. This bed right here right now has just some starts of Yostaberry and some lilacs over there, and then the rest of it. So those plants right there, those are really fun. Those are called red auric. It can be green, it can be purple. We love it in salad. And then I overwintered a whole bunch of gladiola in this bed, so I'm kind of trying to leave it alone. Actually, you can see one's coming up, so it's kind of there in the middle. It might be a little difficult to see, especially with my my shadow in the way. Hi, honey. What are you doing?
I have something.
What do you have for me?
With my hand.
That hand. Oh, you love me. Thank you. Wow. Dandelions. This girl knows me. Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay, do you want to take these in the house so we can put them in water?
Maybe we can leave them in a pot here.
Oh, okay, lay them there. That's in the shade. Here, careful. Grab the whole thing. Thank you. Wonderful. It is dandelion season. Okay. So here in the middle, I have a whole bunch of cucumbers and melons going. I'm not really sure what their problem is. They have like some spots. It could be from watering them with too cold. I don't know, it just happens. And then one kind, this happened last year as well, got whatever this problem is, and I'm not exactly sure what it's going on with them. But sadly it spread to this whole tray. So I may ditch this tray. I'm really bummed. These are the morning glories that were doing so good. And then whatever this problem is has pretty much just destroyed this tray. So I think we're gonna ditch it. I hopefully have enough morning glory seeds to start again. These are some perennials, and I have a video for that coming out. So I'll tell you guys all about those later in that video. It's another crazy plant lady haul. I know you'll be excited to see. And then all of this here, this is all the garlic that I was able to plant last year. It's nothing fancy. And then I have some other like currants and elderberries and things that I have started there in this garden bed. All of these garden beds in the greenhouse are really just waiting for pumpkins and melons and cucumbers and some peppers. And I think we'll probably get those in maybe next week or this week. These are some flowers and herbs that I have going on. This is lovage and, you know, just some random ones. And then I have all of our peppers, which are desperate to get in pots. And also these peppers, which need to be potted up. But I think I'm just going to put these in the beds. Then I have all of our sugar maple trees, the ones that have survived, and they actually are looking better. We'll be potting those up here soon. We have a few things growing in. So that kale overwintered, this onion overwintered, that horseradish in the back overwintered, and I see I have multiple babies, so we'll be digging those up and potting them up, probably to give to friends. This is all brassicas here, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, that kind of thing, and we should be able to pot those up and plant them out very soon. And here is some more of those perennials that I will tell you about in that other video coming up. This little patch I'm super excited about. Right here, this is our first batch of greens and they are ready for harvesting. So we will probably do a very first salad out of the garden video, maybe Friday. So that's kind of all that I have going on in the greenhouse. It's kind of just hanging on and waiting for it to warm up. So I think yesterday was our last really cold day. Today it is much nicer. I'm going to take you out the door here and we're going to walk into the herb garden. So we have lots going on in the herb garden. That's the greenhouse there. And then the herb garden goes all the way to the gate over there, all the way to the bridge, and right on the other side of like that bench there. So I'll show you what I've got going on in here. It's a little crazy, and I'll tell you why as we go here. So in this garden behind me, I have basically what happened was when we very first put this garden in, we did it back to Eden style, and we laid down our newspaper super thick, we laid down our compost and our wood chips really thick, and funny enough, the thing that came back through, of course, is the spearmint. Now, I honestly wasn't very sad about that because I really like spearmint, and this was meant to be an herb garden anyway, so I kind of just let it do its thing, and it happily filled this bed for all of like about 4 years or so. So about 2 years ago, I noticed that this patch, for whatever reason, started dying out and really running, obviously mint runs anyway, but running into my path and kind of in all different directions. So I'm not exactly sure why, but when the mint started leaving the bed, the grass started growing in, and last year, honestly, like, it just was so hot. It was so hot, and I just like kind of lost it. I lost it as far as the garden goes, and so the grass wins. So we're probably going to end up digging out, and that's kind of the story throughout this whole thing. This particular herb garden is now moving into its 7th year, and so a lot of the stuff is very established, making it really hard to get the grass out. So I think what we're going to end up having to do is pull everything out, get the grass out, and start our layers over and put in different things. So we do have this elderberry back here that we planted and I showed you guys, and I think it's coming up from the bottom, the main stems kind of broke on it. It didn't have a very great root system, so I'm hoping that it still takes off. I do have some spearmint, and I have lots of little like did you see the little bird? I don't know if that went through the camera or not. I have like this Valerian here beside me. I have comfrey and more Valerian, and I mostly just let things kind of go crazy in here and do their own thing, which has been fine. Ooh, the wind's picking up, until the grass. So here's some Valerian. There's some comfrey, and you can see a hops plant growing up through it. You can see that tiny little spearmint plant. And I have like just some different hens and chicks and ground covers in here. There's a sedum. There will be black-eyed Susans, which you can see at the base coming up. We let them go to seed. I have these adorable little grape hyacinths. And then there's a bleeding heart in there. And you can just see like it's really just gone a little bit out of control. So we'll see. I'll try to dig the grass out by hand. If that doesn't work, we're gonna have to start over. And then I have tons of other black-eyed Susan in here, and these little strawberry, or an alpine strawberry with a pink flower. They're just really cute. Those were given to me by a friend. Lots of wild yarrow in here, which we also use, and that's just fine. I don't mind it being a little crazy. I even don't mind the dandelions in here because we use those. I have some columbine as well. I promised myself I was not going to allow these to go to seed, and of course just the year got away from me and we got snow and I wasn't able to cut them down. So this is evening primrose, which is medicinal. That's fine. It just kind of takes over if you let it go to seed. So now I'm gonna have to weed out that. But we have tons of comfrey. The hops are all over. I had a second patch of spearmint through here, which I've battled since the get-go with the grass. So I think again I'm just gonna dig it out and start over a little bit. But I do have tons of valerian. I've got lavender. I have a different kind of little strawberry like ground cover. I have daffodils and narcissus, sage, mother of thyme is there in the middle. I have some irises, and I have a couple peonies which are young. That's a little peony, the red thing in the middle. We have little violets that pop up all over the place. I do allow some tansy to grow in here. I have tons of columbine. I have a red rose, a Don Juan red rose, which is supposed to be super cold hardy, but it dies back every year, and then it seems to get weaker and weaker. So unfortunately, like the whole goal was to have it climb up these posts and then have a crossbeam across there, and it just hasn't worked out. So I'm not sure. I don't think I'm very good at growing roses, but the voles do love them too. So I think that's part of the problem. I do have thyme in here, and just tons and tons of like hyssop, and something that's really fun, which I'll show you guys, is this right here is sorrel, and it's French sorrel. It's one of our absolute favorite spring greens. It's very lemony, and we have quite the little patch in here. So this area right here was kind of where the problem started in this garden. So because this problem area happened and then I had planted out the rest of this, it kind of just became a big mess. So last year I did take back this area by the bench and the tree, and now I only have a little bit of work to do. But so what happened in here was that a vole camped out for the entire winter and ate out the perennials that I had in this section. And because they flipped over all of my layers, so my mulch layer got just messed up, and all my compost and everything, and all the soil got turned, the grass came in, and it came in so quickly. And what happens in North Idaho here is that we'll get some beautiful weather and so sunny and so wonderful, and then rain, and then beautiful weather. So, you know, all this grass that looked like it was like nothing or this tall like 3 or 4 days ago is now like a jungle of grass. So it's a little overwhelming. I'm hoping, because this is wood chipped, I should be able to go through, and I'm gonna give it my best effort and see what I can dig out. Otherwise we're just gonna kind of start over. I do have comfrey and rhubarb planted absolutely everywhere. And we use that for kind of a chop and drop mulch system. Oh, I thought my kids were like hurt. Fortunately, they're not. They're just playing in the shop. They're having fun. They're a little grouchy today. But this big tree behind me, that is a serviceberry. I keep that in here not because we enjoy it. I actually really do not like serviceberries to eat, but the birds love it. Yeah, and we just have like a smattering of like phlox and all kinds of flowers in this garden. Behind me here, this is our strawberry and asparagus patch. It can be extremely productive. We kind of weeded through the whole thing. So it does have a bunch of grass in it. Again, I'm not really sure why. I worked really hard 2 falls ago on covering this like crazy with super deep wood chips, and the grass has just come back in with a vengeance. And I'm not totally sure why that is, other than we do get the voles and the grass can just run right through their tunnels and come up everywhere, and then you're just kind of stuck. So we're working really hard to take back all these sections, but it does take time, and right now vegetable beds are sort of our priority. So as we get the vegetable beds weeded and planted, then we can kind of come through here and just take back different areas. Like I said, these are the oldest sections of the garden. They're turning into their 7th year this year, and you know, things are just getting established and growing up, and when you garden, you just have to sometimes take stuff out and take it back. So this is I believe a June bearing, yeah, it's a June bearing strawberry here. And then we have planted in the asparagus. We actually moved the asparagus from here because our raspberries kept taking over, and the rule of permaculture is work with nature, not against it. So I finally just said, okay, I'm gonna dig this asparagus out, get it out of here. That way it quits getting choked out, and the raspberries can just have this whole section to themselves. And that's worked pretty well. So I don't actually see any asparagus coming up yet. It's still a little chilly. Oh, I actually do. That's exciting. Here's a couple. Ooh, yay. I'm going to show you guys. This is what happens when we get rain, rain, rain. So there's some. There's one. Here's one right here. There's a big one right there. I bet there's more in here. That's what I see for now. Yep, there's one way back there I can see too. So that's super exciting. So I just moved these. I had started these crowns from seed, and I just moved them. So last year I didn't get to harvest anything, but this year we should get to harvest stuff. So we'll just have to see how big the little spears get, and hopefully we'll get to have it. My favorite way to use asparagus is just to eat it straight out of the garden. And then these strawberries right here, they took a break last year, and I mulched the patch super heavy the fall before, so this year we should get a good harvest out of those. This full length of the chicken run, this is our raspberry patch. They're just red raspberries, and the kids absolutely love them. I'm not really sure. So a couple years ago now, I think 2 or 3 falls ago, I mulched incredibly heavily. I hope we get a really heavy harvest out of them. This section here behind me houses our blueberries. They're about 5 or 6 years old, I think, this year, and we've had branches broken off and kind of things like that, and so I started feeding them really heavy with just some cheap coffee from the stores, and they started growing like crazy. So I'm hoping that they're gonna do really well. This lilac behind me, I was able to pull 5 starts out of it last year, and a couple of years ago, so I actually planted this like 10, Eli wasn't even born. That's how long ago. So yeah, probably 10 years ago we put this out here before we bought the property, and my husband's parents were still living here. So we had this lone little tiny tree, this little lilac, and I was so hoping it was going to grow and bloom, and I had taken it from a runner that ran under the fence. Then I learned much later, after we moved here and it had yet to bloom, that it could take up to 10 years to bloom, and maybe never bloom. So finally, you know, I gave it some love, and I waited, and I mulched it, and I fed it, and all the things, and finally I just got so tired of waiting, and I said, you know what, if you're gonna take up this valuable space, you have to bloom, and if you don't choose to bloom, then I'm gonna rip you out. And the next spring it produced one little tiny set of blooms, and so I said, okay, well, you can stay. And then the year after that, then the whole tree bloomed, and it's been blooming every year since. So getting ready to bloom. Now, since we're still in the herb garden area, I suppose I should probably mention the hot tub behind me. The hot tub broke, and it was a very expensive part that broke on it. So we said, okay, well, let's use it for a pond. And we got it all in here. The guys dug a big hole, and we moved all the rocks in place and tried to fill it up, and it wouldn't fill. So we moved all the rocks, tried to figure out what was, tried to plug the holes, filled it up, and it stayed for a little while, and then drained all the water back out. So we finally figured out that somewhere actually underneath these rocks that took a big excavator to move, we found out that there's a valve that is open, like a drain valve, and we're pretty darn sure it's under those rocks, or it just doesn't exist anymore because this hot tub has gotten broken the longer it's sat. So the plan is to put in a wildlife pond here. We do have a little one over there on the other side of the stump, and we definitely are planning on doing that, but we have to order the fabric. And the year we were planning on ordering the fabric was 2020, and all the craziness that happened, so it just didn't get on the list, and now it's not that huge of a priority, so it just sits there and collects rainwater a little bit in the bottom, and the kids play in it. So at some point, I can actually see grass growing in there. That's pretty great. At some point, it will be a running, functional pond with a beautiful waterfall. I just don't know exactly when that's going to be. On the other side here, we have a heat sink, so it's just a dry rock bed, and that's to attract snakes. We don't have any poisonous snakes here, just the little garter snakes, and they love that, and also the little blue-tailed skinks love that as well. Gives them a hiding place from our cats. So now we're entering into our main garden. These are our main garden beds here, as well as behind me. So this whole garden is mostly vegetables, although I have tried many different methods throughout the years in these areas. So this messy section is the last one I have yet out. I got to clear it out. And honestly, we just didn't garden in this space last year, and so that's why it's so overrun. But it will be fine. We're going to take it back. This crazy section right here along this gravel path here is actually a perennial herb area, as well as some annual herbs, and I just usually let them go crazy, but I think we've had a few voles, so I've noticed like a lot of actually weedy things have moved in there, things that we don't use for medicine. So I'm probably I don't really add a lot of compost or mulch or anything to it because you just don't have to. But what I've noticed is that a lot of these beds, as the voles have kind of taken over, they're starting to sink. So I think I'm going to end up digging a lot of things out, adding in and building these beds back up, and then putting them back in. I think that's probably the best protocol. As you garden, like, I don't really garden how most people garden. There's nothing like typical about my garden and my methods. I like to, like, when I hear about a new method like permaculture or back to Eden or no dig or any of these styles and methods, I like to put them to the test and see, okay, what works, what doesn't work. I keep notes in my garden journals, and sometimes when I try things out, it honestly like total bombs and then sets me back a few years in the garden beds, and that's okay. I don't mind because I was able to experiment, and then when those experiments do work, they pay off. It makes it worth it to me. So I encourage you to try things, like just experiment and get out there. What works in one person's garden might not work in your garden. What works in your garden might not work in my garden, and you don't know until you try it. So I encourage you to test it out, try it, plant things weird, and don't worry about what your neighbors think. Just give it a shot. This is a perennial cut flower garden. Again, so this area is one of the main horrific areas of vole damage. So I have every year for 4 or 5 years now planted a row of phlox back here. You can see one that's lived and made it, but I have like planted and planted and planted, and the voles love it. And they also have, I can tell, eaten all of my echinacea that was all in this section here. And so I'm gonna either have to choose something different or pot these and move them. These are some daisies. Then I have some veronica right here in the front. These are really fun iris that I don't really use for cut flowers, but they're just really pretty. There's some valerian in here. These 3 red plants, those are my peonies. Ooh, and the peonies are gonna bloom this year. You can see some buds there. They didn't bloom last year because it got too hot too fast. And then I have a really beautiful like mix of yarrow, and that comes up, it is really pretty. In this herb garden here I have some thyme, and I've noticed that all of my thyme took a huge hit this winter, so usually this whole patch is filled, so I'm gonna have to come through here and see what's alive and cut out what's dead. I have lots of hyssop growing along the edge, and you can see that. I have valerian, I have lemon balm and catnip, I have, oh man, so many things in this bed, it's crazy. But it's honestly, it's just such a mess right now. Some of the things I've tried to plant in here just didn't work. You can see peppermint creeping out here, and that's fine. I've tried chives in here multiple times and they don't like it. I used to have a big patch of sorrel in here, and I can see that the voles have just devoured that this winter. I have hollyhocks, which were supposed to be marshmallow root, and they really like that also, so I don't think that's in here anymore either. So I think it's going to be best just to pull this section out, honestly. So I think I've shown you this before. This patch of daffodils, the creeping grass is one of our main battles, has just gone down in here. So we're going to dig it all out, but I think I'm going to wait till the fall. But this bed is going to be planted with potatoes. The kids' garden is going to be way over there. And, you know, we're just going to put in a whole bunch of stuff and just do what we can to take it back. This middle garden is going to have a whole bunch of different summer crops and greens. So you can see sort of an entrance to our main part of our food forest. Honestly, I call most of the garden the food forest at this point. It's all a little crazy, and that's fine. I don't mind it. So the row right here are those raspberries we planted, and I showed you guys that video, how to plant raspberries, recently. And that's a yellow variety, so they're actually, I think they're everbearing, and they actually fared pretty good. I will probably cut the tops off of them. Because they are a little tall and I feel like they need a little bit of pruning. Here is I think I'll just show you each of the plants I have, and we'll just take a look at them together. I actually haven't been out here for a couple of days, but this is the elderberry that we transplanted, and it is doing so good. I'm really excited to see it, and it's coming up from the base. You can see that right there. Dawn, when she came, she was so sweet. She gave me some wine cap mushroom starts. So I put a few of them around the base of this elderberry. I don't see any coming up yet, but they said it could take a couple months. And so we'll see. I'm really excited. I hope we get some wine cap. And I have, like I said, all these currants. There's our black and red and white currants. I should show you this apple tree here. When we first put in this food forest, we actually started it as just an orchard, and I didn't know about any of the permaculture tips, so we actually planted everything in straight rows so that we could drive the tractor down through the center of them to harvest. And now I've changed my mind, obviously. so now I'm trying to figure out like what to plant in between them, how to keep the creeping grass out, how to take over each section. So every year we just take over a little section, a little section, a little section, and now we're having to pause that for a little while we go back over some of the older sections, and that's fine. This is an Ashmead's kernel apple. He's had a rough go of it, but I think this year is looking pretty good. This food forest is about 4 or 5 years old now, and you might wonder why everything is so puny still, and the reason is that every single winter, every single tree just about gets eaten off by the voles and at the roots. So they just like try to grow, and then they get eaten off, and they have to regrow those roots, and then, you know, so they can never produce anything. This is a Lodi apple tree, which it looks like I've lost. I'm not sure what's killed it. It didn't have its root eaten off. It is a little early in the season, but it does not look like it made it. This is another apple tree. This one I actually put in last year. It's a Norland Apple, and we actually had the pigs escape from their electric net fencing, and then they went into the area where I had just planted 5 brand new apple trees. This was one of them, and so we were able to trap them in there, but I had to do a emergency 10:30 at night, move the apple tree, and it was such a hot summer last year. I don't know, again, if this one's gonna make it. It doesn't really look like it did. So we just keep replanting and replanting, and eventually I will be so overrun with food, you guys will all just have to come over and come get food, because I'll just have so much. It'll be wonderful. This is that huge elderberry that we were blessed with. I'm so excited. It is way tall and it's looking awesome. I have black currants planted at the back of the raspberry patch. I had a amazing hazelnut tree that was actually growing and doing so good, and then last year that winter just took it out. We didn't get very much snow, and I think the cold weather just was too much for it without the snow blanket. This amazing little tree, I just keep blessing and blessing. It's a crab apple. It is a dolgo, I can't say that very well. Crab apple tree. It is the only tree that has produced fruit on this farm so far, and it had one tiny adorable little apple on it Mom, 2 years ago, and then it got eaten off by a vole. Mom. So I'm hoping that this will be able to keep growing and it will do much better. The start that we were given was pretty puny, and it just is what it is. So I just keep blessing it and hoping it's gonna do well. We do have all down this row here, like right here at my knee, I have this oregano plant. I have a ton of comfrey planted all along the fence. This Evans Bolly bush cherry. I do remember most of the trees, but not always. This did really well for so many years. It finally started flowering. I was so excited to get fruit off of it. It didn't have a pollinator when it did bloom because the other one I had died, and like honestly, again, I think the winter that we had no snow just took it out. So I don't know, and maybe it will come back. I doubt it, but it just kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, we just keep planting and planting. This is a different kind of cherry tree, more of a wild one, and I'm not sure if it made it or not yet. It is still very cold here at night, and so not everything wakes up very quickly in the spring, which is a good thing because it still gets very cold. We've got more rhubarb and more comfrey behind me. I had a row of amazing, I had like 6 or 7 gooseberry bushes back here, and I just don't think they liked the spot. We do have all of these pine trees right here, right along the edge, and it's not the best, to be honest. This was a mulberry tree. I have planted now, I don't know, 6 or 7 of the mulberries, and I'm not sure. I just think I have to bring my zone up a little bit before the mulberries are going to do great. Again, like I said, I don't mind experimenting. It's okay if things fail. It kind of tells me where I'm at. This is such a cold, bizarre little pocket we're in, and you know, some things are doing really well, and some things just are not, and that's okay. This tree here is doing just fine. This is a northern spy apple tree. It's a little bit later to wake up, and that's okay. This is a Williams Pride apple tree, and it's just getting its leaves, which is great. This tree has done really well. It did get its roots eaten off once. This is a Liberty apple. It's absolutely beautiful. This one and the Williams Pride did bloom last year for the first time, so that was exciting. This poor little Bosch pear tree just never really did anything. Sometimes when you get starts that are bare root starts, they just don't do a lot. And then like, oh, this is the bosque. That must have been the Comus. So this bosque, like, it's got like these one little live branch down here at the bottom. I just keep blessing it and hoping one day it's gonna turn into a tall tree. one can hope. One can do that. It's just fine. This is a wealthy apple. It is alive. It does have some shoots on the bottom. I'm actually not sure if the main stem lived, but the shoots are at least coming out of the main trunk and not the graft, so that's good. This Flemish beauty pear tree was one of those. It was so beautiful when I first put it in, and honestly, like, I don't really know what happened other than last year's heat was just brutal, and I think that it, like, all these new ones that I put in, they just were not happy no matter how much I watered. And I honestly, I don't usually water, especially not the food forest, with all this deep mulch and stuff, and I actually did water last year, and I don't know if it made a difference or not, so I'm still waiting to see. I mean, this does not look very alive to me, sadly. This was a rescue European pear. Having just said that I don't really water very much in here, that is true, and one of the reasons I actually started watering was because I had this row of triple crown blackberries right here, and they really tried, and I did bring them a little bit of water here and there and tried to get them established, and honestly they just kind of gave up the ghost. It just wasn't, I don't think they got enough sun back here. You can see this whole pasture of trees. We still had those for most of this food forest life, and I think they just got too much shade, so we opened that up, and I think that honestly it's going to help the new things that we put in, especially if it doesn't become a brutal hot summer. This is, oh, I think the little tag broke off, but this is a Wanetta Plum, and she does her best every year. We have some green growth going on here down below. I'm not sure if the top lived or not. We haven't really planted the herb layer much out here in the food forest yet. It is still young. We do have a couple currants back here, and a lot of this was honestly just a test. We have another rhubarb, which you can tell that's how small it is, which means this is a very cold corner, and that's why I like to test it out, like let's just see what's gonna grow. This is a tree that's going to really help boost the nutrients. This is a Siberian Pea Shrub. It bloomed for the very first time last year. It was so beautiful and so fun, so I'm hoping it blooms this year so I can show you guys. But it is just starting to leaf out, so it's brand new. I only have one more that lived. Most of those died. You know, sometimes that's a thing when you're ordering these bare root trees, not all of them make it, and that's okay. Especially if you're ordering them from like the wholesale side of a company and you get like a whole bunch of them. You know, sometimes stuff just doesn't make it, especially when you're planting it in a really harsh climate like this. There was a hazelnut here. It's right here. Again, I don't know if it's going to come back or not. We'll just have to wait and see. Sometimes things wait all the way till June to come back here, and that's okay. I had a black lace. Here's the stick right here. This was the black lace elderberry I was so excited for. I still have the stump in the ground. I did go ahead and cut off this top, so this isn't because it died, it's because I purposefully cut it, hoping that the root system would come back, and that it would just make it a stronger plant. So I'm just waiting to see. Again, it's a little bit early, and what I've really focused on is moving over to the kitchen garden, which I'm super excited to take you over there because there's big stuff happening. This is one of those big currants that we moved. It's just about to bloom out. I'm super excited. And we have this other one, and we have one more by that rock there. This is another pear tree. This is a seckle. So I'm hoping, you know, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see what happens. This is a black ice plum, and I just keep waiting. I keep waiting and waiting for food to happen, and I know it will at some point. It's just a matter of time. This is a Shuxan strawberry patch we put in last year, and they did make it. They're alive. So we might get strawberries out of there. I may end up moving them in order to start bringing this ground up and just really adding a bunch of mulch and things. You know, just a lot of it just depends on time. This is a Honeycrisp apple. The top of it got broken off in shipping. So I planted it and I keep blessing it and praying, and it did end up forming another top shoot. So, you know, it just kind of hangs in there. This is a Kirsten cherry tree right here. I mean, like this doesn't look good. This is not a good thing. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not really sure why all of the trees that I got last year just didn't do good. So I honestly think it was just the really brutal summer we had. They just didn't have time to get established. It was already hot in the spring. Like this year is a total normal year with the cold. It's still cold in May. But the spring we had last year was so unusual. No one even knew what to do with it. I mean, we were like swimming in June. That's pretty unusual. And then this is, honestly, this is like my favorite tree right here. It's just so beautiful and has always done really well. It was completely bloomed out and like ready to bloom out. And I looked out here with such great anticipation, and I was like, where's my tree? What happened? And I came out and the whole entire root system had been eaten off by the voles, and it was laying on the ground. So I stuck it back in the ground. I prayed really hard. It's a Moonglow European pear. I prayed for it and lo and behold, it's still hanging on. It's still living. It's leaning pretty bad. And I think I may end up having to move back the mulch and like bury it a little bit deeper in regular dirt. But otherwise, it is leafed out. I see some blooms on it, and we'll see if eventually we get some fruit off of the poor thing. We have another rhubarb over here. Rhubarb, comfrey. Those are like the main theme. They do super good, and the voles leave them alone. So you got to go. And daffodils. Those are like the ones I have everywhere. This is a really fun one. This is an aronia, and it's gonna bloom pretty good. I can tell for the first time this year. It did get a couple of flowers on it last year, but nothing fancy. And so I'm pretty excited to see what that tastes like. We've never tasted aronia before. If you have, let me know. Tell me what you think in the comments. So I've showed you guys this garden before when we planted this big apple tree that I'm about to show you. This was a shade garden when we had this great big pine tree here and here. And when we cut them down, basically what happened was this whole garden turned into a sun garden, and that was completely fine. But then that meant that the weeds just grew super fast. So, and what I'm noticing too this year is that this must be a warm spot, because this rhubarb is already ready to harvest when nothing else on the farm really is, it's not this big. So that's exciting. I love that. This is that apple tree we were given, and we just got planted with our interns recently, and it is absolutely leafed out and doing so good. I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping to be able to, since we have some large plants over here, I think we should be able to take this corner back fairly easily. I do have a whole bunch of asparagus planted over here. I don't know that any of it's coming up, but I should be able to dig out the grass fairly easily. And then I have a bunch of bleeding heart and comfrey planted right here, and they are alive. We had ripped everything out of this garden last year and planted a whole bunch of free strawberries that were given to us, Fort Laramie strawberries, I believe. Most of them didn't make it, again, I think because it was just too stinking hot last year. And then what ended up happening is all these weeds came in, and even though we mulched really heavy, they still came in and took over. So we're gonna have to come back through and weed. You know, weeding and gardening, that just goes hand in hand, and that's okay. That's all right. Behind me, I'm so excited. This little pocket is doing so good. We have currants in the back row, and then we have Nanking Cherry here, and it looks like this Nanking Cherry is about ready to just burst. It's got little buds all over it. I'm so excited about that. And I have a second one over here. This one takes a little longer to really bud out, as you can see. It's kind of funny because we have this currant here totally leafed out, and this guy was ready to flower. And then right next to it, we have something that's barely leafed out at all. And the same here. So I don't know why this tiny little pocket is a little extra warm, but I'm keeping that in mind and remembering that that might be a good spot to plant something that needs a little tender area. And then we've been working on, I planted an ever-bearing raspberry over here and it just never really did very well. And so we've been working on pulling all of that out. I have a little bit there left in the play area. The kids have informed me that's their raspberries, so I'm gonna let them keep their raspberries. That's fine. I have a perennial flower bed that runs the length of this garden wall here. And partly because of the dog, partly because of voles, partly because of lack of mulch, because we were out of wood chips for so long and we really just had to utilize whatever we could in some areas that we could use them in. And so a lot of this problem came from not being able to get enough mulch. And so those areas where we didn't get enough mulch in, that's the type of areas that are now completely taken over and we just have to redo them. So it's okay. It's not a big deal. It does get a little discouraging sometimes, but that's why I'm going to take you into my kitchen garden and show you what we're doing so that this doesn't keep happening. I have another perennial bed here. The logs we actually put in after we put the Back to Eden garden in. That was one of our first lessons that was really difficult. So the lesson was that when you have a Back to Eden garden, you have to have a barrier. So we did end up putting in the barrier, but it was too late for this area. And, you know, so between the vole and the lack of barrier, that's kind of how the grass got in. So it's okay. We just learned the lesson. And now when we put in new gardens, we just know that's what we need. This area here is just more perennial flowers and things. The pond, we did buy a new pond pump because ours broke. So we're going to be hooking that up. I'm super excited. Actually, Ben is super excited to get that going. So we'll get that done this week. This lavender garden is, oh my, I see a huge dog hole over here. Wow. Can you see that? That's what happens when you have a puppy. Anyway, most of the lavender didn't make it out here. Some of it did though, and it is very tiny in here. So this will be eventually an amazing lavender garden. And like for whatever reason in there, it just didn't work very well. So we're just going to go back through, and what we're doing is we're actually starting to hardscape a lot more. And I think that hardscaping is going to keep the voles at bay and just make weeding easier and less work. And honestly, that is like, I think that's one of our best things. We don't live in town where there's lots of concrete. In fact, there's none really. If you guys are enjoying this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel for many, many more garden tours to come. So I think that hardscaping is our best friend, and that's why we have this middle garden here. Our original plan in 2020 was to actually put in a root cellar in this space. Well, we actually decided we liked having this much vegetable growing area, so we kept it, but there was no way that I could keep up with the weeding. So we started using this black agriculture fabric, and I love it. It is amazing. It is thick. It's like a woven cloth. I can't remember where we ordered it from, but if I figure it out, I will leave a link down in the description box if you're interested in ordering it. It heats up the soil. It allows the plants to grow, get a little bit of a head start. And honestly, it's just amazing. It keeps the weeds out. Works great for me. We also use a lot of cattle panels and T-posts in here for trellises. So this is our summer garden. We call it the cellar garden. Number one, because we were going to put a root cellar here. And number two, because we mostly grow main crops in this area. And we don't really mix in a lot of herbs or flowers in there. We just try to keep that as like, this is like a market garden, rose style, pretty normal, easy to walk down and just harvest like crazy. We do have some things planted along the house here and here. The plan is to put in some concrete on the front of this house and pull out all of those plants and put them into the garden areas. I think that's going to be a lot better, but concrete is spendy and that's just not where we started. So here now we're moving into the kitchen garden. I'm so excited to show you guys. If you have not watched our raised bed garden video, I will leave that up in the iCards for you guys to check out. This was a massive undertaking and I'm so excited. I think I'm gonna get rained on a little bit here. So these raised beds are our very first hardscaping project. Actually, no, they're our second hardscaping project because that fire pit was our first. We put that in last year. So basically the goal here is just to have some space that buys us insurance against the voles. This will just make sure and help us to ensure that we actually get to take home things like garlic, some perennial vegetables that they seem to love eating in the wintertime when the snow is on the ground. And it's just going to make it so we have less weeding to do and just a very beautiful place to be. I'm super excited. So this is all strawberries. We're about to plant our asparagus out there, especially now that I know that the other ones are coming up. We have already put in all of our seeds, so this garden is coming up. I can see some peas are starting to sprout, but you guys probably aren't going to be able to see them there. The plan is to use the trellises to grow cucumbers and beans on, and we did, oh, that's right. Someone asked me about our water system, so we actually just hooked that up yesterday. My mom and I actually hooked it up, and we got caught out in this huge hailstorm and got soaking wet. It was very amusing. I try really hard not to water a tremendous amount, actually. So unless it is extremely hot and dry like it was last year, I don't generally water. Now that doesn't mean we get a lot. We get about 26 inches a year, which is not bad. That's fine. But our water in the ground is very, very deep and it's very dry on our property. We have extremely fast draining soil, which is a good thing and also makes it hard because our ground doesn't really retain a lot. That's why we use a lot of very heavy mulch. We use wood chips, leaves, grass clippings, straw, hay, you name it, whatever we can get, even that black fabric. So unless I have to, I don't really water. Now, obviously these raised beds are going to have to be watered and we're probably just going to be hand watering them or using like a hose and a water wand or something of that sort. Now, for the rest of the garden, I decided instead of having to keep dragging hoses when it was an emergency or if I wasn't home, we were camping or something, it would be much easier to go ahead and put in a system. So I've used this before in previous gardens and really liked it. They're just little micro sprinklers. They do a 360 pattern. So we have just installed this and we plan on doing it. I do have one over in the herb garden that I've used for years. I have to clean it out every spring. We're about ready to do that this week because little bugs like to nest inside the sprinkler holes and things, but it doesn't take any time at all to get set up. Basically, you just take this black piping, it's super cheap, plug in a sprinkler and you're set. It's super easy. So we have just placed little ends near where we can easily hook up a hose outside of the fence so we're not dragging hosing through the rest of the garden, which has been a problem before. In bigger areas, we'll most likely just use a regular garden hose and a overhead water system. I actually do like overhead watering if it's done at the right time. I like to water very, very early in the morning, get it going, and then I water for a very long time. We're talking 2 to 5 hours. We saturate the ground thoroughly and then we move on to the next place. So we don't necessarily water every single day that way. That one place will only be watered once a week or less. Mostly just depends on the soil, depends on the plants, depends on the weather. And if you guys are new to North Idaho, or a cold climate that's kind of crazy like this here in the Northwest, we get so, you know, one day it may be 40 degrees and the next day it might be 75 degrees. Like yesterday was 40 degrees and freezing cold, 40 or 45 or so. That's Fahrenheit. And then today it's like 60 something. It's so warm. So, I mean, 20-degree differences are very, very common here. And that does make it really challenging to garden in our area, but it can be done. So I hope that helps you who had questions with the watering system. Yeah, I hope that helps you. I don't love drip irrigation. I know a lot of people do love that, and if you do, that's great. I just haven't had very good luck with it. I have thought about putting drip irrigation in my raised beds. We'll just see. We'll see how the first year goes. I also wanted to talk about our fencing behind us. We just have 4x4 fencing, just the wire fencing. We got these really cheap posts from a guy. They're like throwaway posts, so the whole trailer load was like $200, I think. We got like a ton. Maybe we bought 2, I don't know. Anyway, it was like they were really cheap. We bought them a long time ago, probably when we first moved here, so 6-ish years ago. And honestly, they've held up just fine. We don't use concrete here in the Northwest because of our frost stuff. It goes so deep that it just rips the posts and the concrete right out of the ground. So we actually just use gravel and posts, and it's held up pretty well. We do have some areas like right here where it's sagging pretty bad, but when they put the fencing in, they actually didn't use like a fence stretcher or anything like that, so maybe some of those areas could have been helped had we had that tool, but we didn't. And we sort of were in a like, we have to get this in right now, so we use what we have mentality. And that's honestly how we have been building our homestead over all of these years, is using what we've had, using what was given to us, or what we could find for free. And that's great. I think that's a good way to start, especially if you don't have a lot of money. And now, as we can afford it, we're saving for these bigger projects. We were really blessed that the funds for these raised beds was actually donated to our farm. Honestly, like it was a surprise, and it was very blessing to receive that. We are working toward being able to put in nicer things that we actually will stand the test of time a little bit better. I should also mention the posts are 7 or 8 feet. Some of them vary, and the fence is 6 feet. We have never had a deer or an elk, even though they come right up to the edge of the fence, especially in this section. They've never jumped over the fence, and I think we've only ever had like 1 turkey fly over, and the dog chased it out, so it was just fine. This is a section of the garden here that is it's called a fedge. This is my mother area, so I will be taking cuttings from all of these plants and spreading them throughout the rest of the property as the years go. I have mostly lilac and forsythia through here, and also some honeyberries. And then on this side, I have a whole row of boysenberries, which some years do really great, some years really don't. They're right on the edge. I think they're about they're almost a zone 6. Since we are a zone 5, I went ahead and planted them, and this is how I know we're really mostly a zone 4. So I'm hoping that adding these raised beds in here will provide the heat that they need to be able to start growing. You know, they are coming up, and they do grow. Whether or not we get flowers and any fruit off of them is another story. And honestly, that's the thing. When you're planting for your zone, you have to think about, yes, the plant will survive, but will it fruit? That's the main question. And so to me, it makes more sense to plant things that are for sure. We want things that are actually going to produce, and produce very well. So I do have different honeyberries. Here's one here. Here's another one over here, which we moved recently. We love the violets. We let them self-sow everywhere. We use those. I'm gonna actually take you guys along next week for a video of rhubarb, dandelion, and violets, because that is where we're at in the season. I'm so excited. Oh, and nettles. And I'll show you all of the fun recipes, what we like making with those, and we'll take you guys along for a video about that. Here's the Yostaberry behind me. Josta, how do you guys say it? I'm very curious. It doesn't matter. What, honey? Oh yes, thank you. That reminds me, Maggie. Let's show our friends, and then you can pick one, okay? Maggie, what are you picking? Just one, please. So these right here are the Black King pansies. I absolutely love them. I didn't realize that they were gonna get this big. But I love that they do. These make a fantastic bright blue syrup, which I cannot wait to try. We have made pink, like fuchsia colored syrup plenty of times. Nope, you get to keep that one. These tall trees here, these are tamaracks. They were planted by my in-laws when they lived here, and I think they're so beautiful. I just love them. So they get to be here, and we just kind of work around them. I will trim up some more of the branches to allow some more sunlight through here. We also have a couple of quaking aspen, which are also very beautiful. They do, so here's the taller ones there in our yard, And they do allow dappled sunlight to get through, so they work very well in a food forest type situation. This behind me is Honeyberry Hill, so we have the whole thing planted with honeyberries. We do have one blueberry planted on the end and a few strawberries as well, and then some soapwort. If you have not used that or heard of that before, it's a plant that does suds up and you can use it as a soap alternative. And then I also have some creeping phlox because I just think creeping phlox is so beautiful. The plan is to put some black raspberries along this path. I had a red raspberry patch here, but it just didn't have enough food, so we've recovered it with mulch to kill all the weeds, and then yeah, we'll replant. I'm super excited. I have another hazelnut here. And that's another one of those things that I feel like it's right on the edge of our growing season. So it kind of does okay. Normally it leaves out. We haven't had any fruit off of it. It just grows very slow, but I'm pretty sure that those ones are only 3 years old. And this apple tree is only 3 years old. Oh, here comes a dump truck. So this apple tree behind me is 3 years old, as well as this hazelnut. Whoop, there he is. This hazelnut. And so something to note that really has helped me be patient is they say the first year you plant something like a bare root tree, which is what these were, is the first year they sleep, which means they don't really do a whole lot. You plant them and that's about it. The second year they creep, which means they grow a little bit, but it's very, very slow. So that was my last year. And then the third year they leap. So this should be the leap year for this tree and this hazelnut. So we'll see. I'm super excited. I have found that to be true in lots of other areas, but again, we have just battled and battled and battled to get anything to grow and thrive here, that it's kind of been difficult to see progress. But I think we are finally, especially with Honeyberry Hill here, this is such an encouragement. I love seeing this. These actually have grown very quickly and are doing very well on this hugel mound we have going on here. And so I appreciate this encouragement. And I would like to say that if you guys have gardened and you have seen defeat or things have died or whatever, I would like to just encourage you. It's okay. Don't give up. Just keep going. Just keep planting. Things die. It's all right. You can always get more plants. And like, it doesn't look like a lot right now, but pretty soon my plants are going to be huge and you're not even going to hardly notice the grasses and the weeds that look like they're taking over right now. They're really not. They're really just the understory. It's not a big deal. And I have my whole life to keep working on all of these areas and keep improving things and finding which ones grow best. And so do you. So I just want to encourage you with that. This area right here, we really haven't done a whole lot with. This. I do mulch it pretty heavy with all of the trimmings from these trees. And pine needle obviously can be a little bit acidic, but honestly that's not the problem here because we don't mix the pine needles into the ground. We just layer on top. But the problem here is that we actually only laid wood chips. That was one of my trials and my tests that I did. We didn't lay down any compost and we didn't lay down any composted manure at all. We only did wood chips. And so you can see what the result of that is, that not a whole lot grows. I only have to weed it a little bit. The roses, however, I love this area. Maybe I should take a hint. Maybe I just had an epiphany. Maybe I should just plant roses over here. Let me know, what do you guys think? Lastly, this is our fire pit. I put this in last year. I'm so excited. This area was just a pain. Actually, in this area, we actually had moles. Now, there is a difference. A vole with a V, they eat plants, and a mole with an M, they eat like grubs and worms and things. So the moles really loved this area because it had almost no grass in it, just these really random weeds, and we'd get these huge mounds of dirt. So when we mowed what little weeds and barely any grass was over here, it would just be a cloud of dust. It was horrible. It was not fun. So I kept thinking, what can I do? What can I do? How can I utilize this area? And it came to me. So I drew it all up and have been looking at those plants for so many years, and finally I put the pit in. I just honestly started digging with the shovel, and my husband felt so bad for me that he went and got the tractor and started digging it out with the tractor. Do we like our fire pit, baby? Oh, now you're gonna be shy. Now she's gonna be shy. She loves her fire pit. We just had a fire on Mother's Day and it was wonderful. So this actually is not just a fire pit. I intentionally sunk it down. I intentionally filled it up with like 16 inches of gravel and rocks. And the reason I did that was so that it would be a heat sink back up to my hugel mound and provide heat for these poor little trees that grow along the fence here and are a little bit shaded. And it has worked. It's worked very well. The last section I want to show you guys is over here. You can see those 3 sticks right there. That is an elderberry. It is alive. It's coming up. I have a few daffodils in here, and I've got these aspens. And honestly, we just haven't, these yellow flowers, honey, those are the daffodils. So we just have barely started this bed. It's been here for a while, but we haven't really planted anything. We're just really working on what do we want, design, and kind of what's gonna work here, what's not gonna work here. It is a really harsh climate to grow on, and you know, it is what it is. We're just making the best of it, and that's what you gotta do. You gotta, whoa, did you slip? Even though it's sunny right now, it is starting to rain. There's a big black cloud right over my head. You can't see it because that looks blue, but the one right over my head is saying that it is going to rain. So I'm going to go ahead and end this garden tour. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope it's been eye-opening for you guys and encouraging to you guys. You don't have to have everything put together, and your garden can look exactly how you want it to look. My garden is starting to look the way that I want it to look. I have built it all out on paper and been dreaming and designing and planning for so many years now. And now, I think last year was probably the first year things started becoming apparent to other people as they would see my garden. And I'm really, really excited about that. I'm excited that other people can see the vision that I have had. But anyway, that's kind of a look at my garden. If you guys have any questions or you enjoyed today's video, please leave them down in the comments section for me. I would love to hear what you guys think. If you guys have ideas on battling grass or hardscaping or battling voles, I would love to hear your guys' comments. Leave those down in the comment section for me. We have some exciting things going on that I really, really want to tell you guys. So stay tuned for Friday's video, and I will reveal what is coming up in my future that you guys will be excited about too. Thank you for joining me on this garden tour today. I can't wait to see you guys in another video coming up real soon.